Hey, so if you are a parent of maybe a 7-year-old, an 8-year-old, maybe a middle school student, high school student, or even a grown adult, this episode is definitely for you today. We're going to cover the 5 major wealth lessons every parent should teach before their kids leave their household. It's going to be a really fun episode. And I actually came up with this idea when I read a recent article from Bloomberg. It said that despite how advanced we are with technology and information, why is America so financially illiterate? And they cited a number of studies that talked about how we just can't answer basic questions about how money works, the way to grow it. There was a study cited by TIA that said something like, I don't know, I think Gen Z had answered maybe 38% of the questions correctly on a basic financial literacy test. And when you add that to the fact that even a moderate income family will spend somewhere between $500,000 and $700,000 on their children throughout their entire adult lives, it's pretty shocking. I mean, that obviously is housing, food, shelter, clothing, education, and for many, it's helping them as they're an adult. So if we're doing all this, why is it that we can't necessarily find a way to understand how money works, and in particular, wealth? And so I thought this would be a good session. 5 of the most important wealth lessons every parent should teach their child before they leave their household. I'm Dion Woods, and this is Wealth Channels. Okay, so I think if you've been following me at all, and speaking of following me, I would appreciate it if you would hit that subscribe button. It's really important to help us be encouraged to continue to produce content like this. It just takes a second, just click it, and we're off to the races. So I'm 60 years of age. My wife and I have 2 kids. They're adults now, and they're 26 and 28 years of age. And I was just thinking, going back and what did we teach our kids to try to help position them for financial success in life, regardless of what they did or what they pursued as a career? And I was thinking about that. And then I said, has that changed since when we did it so many years ago? And, I've always worked with young people relative to money. I mean, I've done everything from taught Sunday school lessons to work with youth, middle schoolers. I have a foundation that helps high school students build wealth. I work in the asset management industry. I've been doing it for more than two and a half decades, helping people build wealth. And so I feel like I'm somewhat qualified to talk about this topic as it pertains to helping young people build wealth and understanding the principles of doing so. But I was like, what did we do? And were there lessons that maybe we can convey to help others, maybe help their children build wealth and obviously get on the road to using monies correctly? And look, I'm not here to try to tell you how to raise your child and what necessarily their children should or shouldn't do. But these are just the things that have worked for us in the past. This is information that I share with others and have seen it work for others. And hopefully it'll be beneficial for you. I'd welcome your comments about things that you're doing that maybe I don't discuss and talk about that could be helpful to others. And so what are the 5 lessons? I want to tell you them, and then I want to give you some context before we go into each. Okay, they're real simple, but they're powerful. Number 1, what is wealth? Number 2, how do you create it? Number 3, how do you use it? Number 4, how do you grow it? And number 5, how do you protect it? That's it. Those are the 5. And to be honest, many of the financial problems we have in life is because we have not understood or utilized or worked the lessons that I've just explained when we were younger. So if we can get our kids to understand those 5 things, they're on the road to do well. Doesn't mean everything is going to go perfect, but it does mean that they will not be in financial ditches as often as other people. And hopefully they'll be successful financially. So again, 5 of them. What is wealth? How do you create it? How do you use it? How do you grow it? And how do you protect it? Now, to understand the answer to those questions, we have to understand how we are positioned relative to our child. What do I mean? I've just learned that there are certain things you can tell and teach your child at certain ages that you can't at other ages. You have to use a totally different method. It's what I call the geography of parenting. What do I mean? I'm going to use a little example here to illustrate this. So let's just say this is you, right? And let's say this is your child. Well, normally when you have a child under this age of maybe 7, 8, or 9, this is how you're positioned with your child. You are in the front and they're directly behind you. What does that mean? As a person who's in the front, you're in the lead. That means you command and you say. What you say goes. And here's the thing. Everything that they see and believe in the world is only through the lens of what you see and believe about the world. Because literally, they can't see anything but the back of your head. So they're only watching and listening and learning from you. So at this stage, there's a critical and obvious opportunity to instill real great wealth values. Not just wealth, like life values, what you think about money, what you think about people. All of that is sort of learned and understood and evaluated through the lens of what you see and what you say, because you're in the front, you're in control. But what does happen over time is that eventually, as that child becomes 15, 16, 17, 18, all the way through an adult, suddenly now they move and you are beside them. You were once geographically in front of them as a commander, as the lead. You tell them what to do, you command. But now, as they get older, now you're beside them. And now they're seeing the world. And sometimes, I got my face right here, they don't always see it the way you do. And in this position, you're not commanding, you're coaching. You're not a commander, you're a coach. You're not instructing and telling them what to do. You're advising and maybe giving them some suggestions. And as they get older, your ability to be influential in their life is based on your ability to build trust with them. So the things that we're going to teach and tell you about how to help your kids understand wealth in particular, there will be certain things that you can do easily when you're in the front. And there are other things that you'll have to do as you're beside them that you'll have to use a different methodology. And then later in life, as they become, as they're 50, 60 years of age and you're 80 and 90 and whatever that age is, now all of a sudden you're repositioned again and now you're behind them. So you literally go from a place of commanding to coaching to being cared for. That's the geography of parenting. And so if you think about that, the lessons that I want to teach, think about where you are. You cannot tell your teenager to do things in the same way that you would tell your 5-year-old. And I get it. People are like, this is my house. You're going to do what I say. And that's true. But remember, they're seeing the world now through their own eyes. And if you're going to influence them, you have to use a different method to do that. So let's talk about the 5. Let's hop into it and think about where you are positionally with your child to help understand how impactful your words can be to them. And let me just say one thing, I guess maybe as a parent with adult children now, parenting is hard, and it's certainly hard today. Parents today are facing issues that I never had to face as a parent when my children were 4 and 5 and 8 and 10 teenagers. I mean, they're 26 and 28 years of age now. So it's hard. And I often say that don't define your parenthood by your mistakes, because you will make them. But don't define your parenthood by your mistakes. You do yourself and your child a disservice. When it comes to parenting, it's about trying to instill as many good things and as many valuable things and as helpful things as possible in their life. And hopefully those greatly and vastly outweigh the things that maybe you and I might have done wrong. And, no one's taking a checklist and saying, you did that wrong. And sometimes we're the greatest enemy of ourselves because we're learning how to do this. And every child is different. What works for one doesn't work for the other. So don't define your parenthood by your mistakes, And the other thing that I would say is that, it's so easy that if our children aren't doing what we taught them, that we sort of blame ourselves, like I'm at fault. And I just want to free somebody about that statement, because I don't believe that we are judged for what our children do. I know we are to an extent, but just hear me out. I believe that we are judged for teaching our children what to do. And whether or not they do that, certainly that's on them, obviously at a certain age. But if I've given you the tools, if I've given you the knowledge, if I've given you the values, if I've lived those out before you, how you choose to live and how you choose and what you choose to do, that's not a reflection on the fact that I didn't teach you. Because again, going back here, I taught you everything that I knew. I tried to live it out to the best of my ability, be an encouragement. When you got older and I'm standing beside you now and you're making decisions that are harmful to you, it's not because I didn't teach you. It's because you saw the world and you had a different choice than I did. But because I'm beside you, I'm going to encourage you. Because I'm beside you, I'm going to help you. Because I'm beside you, I'm going to support you. And so when you take that into account, it just takes some of the heavy and the weight off of you. So as we talk about these principles, use them. And if you make some mistakes along the way, it's okay. Go back, try to revise, and be as encouraging and as helpful as you can. Okay, so let's talk about the first one. What is wealth? That's the first thing that we have to teach our children before they leave our house. What is it? And that's a really important one because today people have a totally wrong view of wealth, especially this generation. Wealth is what we see on our phone. Wealth is, what we drive. Wealth is the house we live in. Wealth is how well we're living, where we're going on vacation. And it's just the wrong definition of wealth. And so one thing that you can do when your children are younger is to help clarify what wealth is and what wealth is not. And wealth is not what you live. It's how you live. It's not what you drive. It's not what you wear. It's not the money you have in your account. It's none of those things. It's not even the salary that you make. And that's against the grain of most thinking, because you can be wealthy. I mean, you can be rich. You can have all those things, and you cannot be wealthy because you're in debt and you have very little discretionary income after you look at your spending. And more importantly, you literally have no assets upon which to live and maintain a lifestyle should your income go away. So that's not really wealth in my mind. And so one thing you can do for children to help them understand our goal is to build wealth, right? So what is wealth? Wealth is not the things that I mentioned. So one thing you could do when your children are young is you can have two boxes and imagine them gift wrapped. And one is a big, huge box. You gift wrap it. You maybe put something heavy inside, but not of value, maybe some bricks. And you give two gifts. And the second gift is a smaller box, maybe not wrapped as well, doesn't look as appealing, right? Lighter, right? And you say, okay, which gift is better? Which gift do you think has more and is worth more? Which one would you choose? And if your children are young, they'll be like, I want the big box, it's heavy. Right. And they open up the big box and you look and there's some bricks in there and maybe there's a $1 or $2. And then you have them open up the second box. And in the second box, it's lighter, but it's got more money in it. Maybe it's got $20 in it. Maybe it's got $40, however you want to display and share the example. And what you want to do is you're trying to show a visual illustration that wealth is not what it looks like on the outside. It's not how it's wrapped. It's about what's inside and what it's capable of producing. And when you open up that big box and you see a couple of bricks and you see a dollar bill, you'll realize that what was advertised was not real. And that's what happens with riches. What's advertised is not real. But sometimes a thing that doesn't look to be all that appealing and seem to be all that rich can actually be producing a lot. And that's what life is about, because the people who, aren't necessarily driving the fanciest cars, but owns maybe 6 car washes and maybe owns a few laundromats, right? Might do jobs that people don't really think about. They have a sanitation company, but they're wealthy, right? And you just don't know it because you're judging them by exterior things. And so that's just one example to help them begin to understand. Again, this is the younger children you can use as that basis. For older kids, you can use an example to just be like, okay, I'm going to show you two people. They make very different salaries. One makes $300,000 a year. The other one makes $100,000 a year. And which one do you think is wealthier? And what you'll find is that you can create a scenario, and you can create a scenario where you'll show them that the person who actually makes more money actually has less wealth because the investments that they have relative to what they spend is less. So let's say this person with $300,000, they earned they had $10,000 in the bank account. But if they spend $10,000 a month, then technically they're 1 month wealthy because they have enough assets, $10,000, to last them 1 month before they're broke. Take the other person, and maybe they've saved $20,000. They're not living as well, right? But they've got $20,000, and they're only spending $5,000 a month. Well, they can go 4 months before they're broke. So one is 1 month wealthy and the other is 4 month wealthy. The one who's wealthier is the one who earns less, but it's because they've got less spending and they've saved and invested more. So that's just an idea of what things that you can use to help them to understand, hey, what is wealth? Okay, so understanding what wealth is, we've explained it. If your kids can walk away from your house and understand that wealth is not what you drive, it's not what you wear, it's not how well you live, it's not the income that you earn from a job, it's the investments that you save, the assets that you own that ultimately have the capacity to help sustain your lifestyle should all those other things go away. Wealth is basically to live independent from the financial support of others, even if the others is his job. And if that can be drilled into their head, that's going to help them tremendously as they start making choices, because they're like, hey, what's more important, building wealth or looking nice? What's more important, doing this cool thing, spending a lot of money, or beginning to build up my investment account? So that's what is wealth. Then the second thing is, how is wealth made? Oh, now this one is good. So one of the things that we did to try to do this is that we tried to dispel the myth about how wealth is created and how money is made. Because when your children are young, the first thing we often do is we introduce them to the concept of an allowance. And I get it, because it's like, hey, an allowance is like having a salary at a job. You show up, you do your work, you get paid. So at home, you show up, you do these things, I'm going to pay you like a salary. And I think that worked a long time ago. But there's a couple of problems that I found with using that as a method to teaching what wealth is, and in particular, how it's created in your life. I feel like, number one, I don't know about you, but my son in particular, who is just like frugal and also hyper focused on building wealth, I found that he was in situations where, like, okay, I give him an allowance, but everything that he does, he wants to know, how much am I going to get paid? And I'm like, what? Hey, could you do this for me? How much are you going to pay me? I'm like, I'm going to let you continue to live here. That's how much I'm going to pay you. And some kids who are like that, they're like, they start seeing everything like, well, what am I going to get paid to do this? And I didn't want to reinforce that attitude. Not all kids are like that, but my son was. So I don't think that allowances for us wasn't very beneficial. I didn't like it, because I didn't want my kids to understand that money was made by doing things that I'm not willing to pay you for, or doing things that is expected. I shouldn't have to pay you to clean your room. You just shouldn't want to live in a nasty room. I shouldn't have to pay you to help with the dishes or to take out garbage. You're a member of the family. You're helping to contribute. We're all a family. We're all got a part to play. I'm sure they don't do that on farms, right? I mean, so I didn't use allowances as a means to help my kids understand how money was made, because I wanted them to know nobody's going to pay you to do stuff that they expect you to do, or they're not willing to pay you for. Your boss is not going to give you money because you chose to show up on time. That's expected. So I tried to focus on helping my kids at an early age, when I was in the front, to understand how money was made. And it wasn't made by doing things that people aren't paying you for, or things that just should be expected to be done. So how do you make money? How do you create wealth? Well, I gave them a lot of different options to do that. Number one, well, you can make money by doing something that others don't want to do, don't know how to do, and would like to have done. So whether or not that's you choosing to go and mow lawns, whether or not that's my business partner, his son, started a little trash can cleaning business, where he went around with a little power washer and was cleaning the trash cans of the neighbors who, bring their trash out, and it's like the thing is dirty. Started to make a little bit of money. It's a great way for him to understand how business works and how competition is created, because he found after a couple of weeks there were other kids with little wagons and power wash machines trying to wash some of the cans as well. So you can make money that way. You can make money. I would give them options and opportunities to find ways to make money by doing things that people didn't want to do themselves, didn't know how to do, and would need to have done. So if your kid is really technologically oriented, they can go and help people with their computers, with their phones. There's no limit to the amount of opportunities for kids to make money by doing those things. And then the other way that I tried to instill how money was made is I said, you can make money by owning assets. And so one thing we did was we bought a vending machine, an ice cream vending machine, put it into the clubhouse, the pool clubhouse in our neighborhood. And every week we'd get ice cream, fill it up. And each week we'd come and I'd have my kids, we pull the coins out. You got $40, $50 worth of coins. And for a kid who's 7, 8, 9 or whatever, that's like a lot of money. You're like, at least back then it was. I don't know, maybe kids today might laugh at that amount. But my intent was I wanted them to see that while they're at school, while they're doing their homework, while they're playing a video game, their asset is making money for them. And that was a good visual illustration. It wasn't about how much was made, it was how it was made. And when our kids constantly were pulling money from the vending machine, they were like, oh, I can own something that's actually paying me for owning it. And we did the same thing when I had opened up a couple of DRIP accounts. Those were dividend reinvestment programs. So you buy a stock directly, and instead of the dividends from that company going to reinvest and buy more shares, you could have the dividend paid to you. My intent was I wanted to buy a stock. I would have my kids get the actual dividend payment instead of having it reinvested, because again, I wanted them to visually see that, hey, I own investments that pay me money. And when that money came in every quarter, right, they would get money and they would be like, oh, this is because I own something that actually generates money. So the second thing is put your children in situations where they can see if you own an asset, the asset can actually pay you income. And that's a way in which wealth is created. So that's number two. Another way that we did it was we talked about entrepreneurship and selling. So we bought pies wholesale, small pies, and we went and sold them in different places and made money that way. There's a whole variety of things that you can do. Trading cards, there's no limit. Another thing we did was our kids would occasionally go through the house and things that we weren't using anymore, we would sell in consignment, and they'd make money that way through trading. What we wanted to do was to not only tell them there are a variety of ways in which money can be made, but we also wanted them to work a muscle that is needed to build wealth. And that muscle is called grit. That muscle is called hustle. That muscle is called tenacity. It's that go make it happen kind of trait that's needed to be successful. And as long as a child believes that wealth is earned and money is made by asking somebody else, particularly their parents, for it, they'll never work that muscle. So the high school student who wants to go on that trip needs to pay a vast majority of it on their own. And maybe you contribute a certain amount. But unless they do the hustle, unless they do the work, then they're not really incentivized to really go and take the sacrifices that are needed to make wealth created, because that's the real key. As long as our children believe that money is created without somebody paying a cost, they'll always look for somebody else to pay the cost because they'll never have to do it. I mean, you can talk about the number of children who are dependent on their parents afterwards. And look, I'm not saying that's a totally bad thing, but what I am saying is that as long as your children don't pay the cost for their financial decisions and choices, they'll never understand the error of their financial decisions and choices. So when they're young, teach them that. You want to do that? You gotta come up with the money. Let's be creative. Let's think about how we can go out and make some money on it. And I'm here to help you in any way I can. But it's not going to come out of my pocket. It's going to come out of yours. And you know what? They're going to be the better for it as a result. So understanding how money is made, how wealth is created, is really key. And I just gave a whole bunch of ways. I'd love to hear some of your comments as to how you're helping kids understand this principle. Because if you don't know how to make it, then when you're older, you will always find yourself dependent on somebody else, dependent on your parent, dependent on your friends, depending on somebody else to do for you what you can't do for yourself, because you never worked that muscle. You never were forced to find a creative way. You never had that pressure on you like, hey, if I don't do it, it's not going to get done. And the people who are successful are people who just put their head down, work hard, creative, think about things outside of the box to ultimately build wealth. And there are lots of ways to do it. But one way that it isn't done correctly is to just put your hand out and ask somebody else to give it to you. That's not going to work. Okay, so that's number two. That was, how is wealth created? The next one is really cool. So we know what wealth is. We know how to make it. The next question the next thing we want to teach our kids is how to use it. This one's really good. So how do you use wealth? Well, I wanted to come to my office and do this one. It's really interesting. I think it was Miles Monroe who said that if you don't know the purpose of a thing, abuse is inevitable. And I think that applies certainly to money. We abuse money because we don't know its purpose. And so helping our kids understand the purpose of wealth is really critical to prevent the abuse of wealth, or the abuse of money. So basically what we do is
what we did is we shared three different purposes or use of wealth and money. There's an aspect of money that is used for your enjoyment. There is an element of wealth that is used to help and benefit others. And there is a portion of wealth that is used as a seed to grow and to produce more of it. And what we try to do when our children are young is to basically say, those are the three areas in which you want wealth to be applied or to use wealth for. The biggest challenges that adults face, we all do, is that we have not allocated money or used money appropriately. We put it all into the wrong bucket. And, it's easy to say, hey, you're spending all your money, you're not saving anything. And that's what we always default to. But listen, putting all of your money into investments, thinking just about growing money and not being a benefit and help and a benefit to others, that's wrong too, right? Or living so frugal and so focused on the future that you can't even enjoy the present, that's wrong because you're not guaranteed tomorrow. So what good is it for you to have $1 million portfolio and then you're not even here to enjoy it? So there has to be a balance. And I'm not saying those are equally weighted. And I'm also not saying that they're going to be the same allocations throughout your lifestyle and your lifetime. There are times when you are going to allocate much more in one area than you do to another. But I can tell you, if you don't plant seed, you won't eat bread. I love there's a scripture that says that God gives seed to the sower and bread to the eater. And I don't think he's giving two different things. I think he gives the same thing. It's just that one person views it as seed to be sown and the other one is viewing it as bread to be eaten. But here's what I've learned about seed and bread. You can always use seed to produce bread, but you can't make bread seed. So taking all of the wealth that you have and eating it will not allow you to be able to produce seed to reproduce it. But if you take a portion of your wealth and use it to create seed, well, that can grow and become bread for something that you can eat and enjoy. So as it pertains to our children, what we've tried to do is just say, listen, you know how money's made. You get money from all of those endeavors I talked about earlier, or maybe your parents or your grandparents or whoever blesses you and you get some money. How do you want to divide that money across those three buckets? And helping kids understand those distinctions are really key. Like, I love the giving part because I really wanted my children to be generous. I wanted to model that for them, and I wanted to show them the power of it. And I'll just give you my own personal history and story. My wife and I would say the time in our lives when we had the most significant increase financially in our lives was when we made an intentional decision to be givers. We actually set up what we called a giving account. That is, when we got money, we ended up putting a certain amount in this giving bucket, and we tried to put as much as we could there, solely for the purpose of being a blessing and helping others. And that was just at that particular time, not that we don't do that now, but we had a real emphasis at that point to really ensure that we wanted to be generous. And when we did that, some of the greatest financial growth in our lives occur. And I didn't want my children to be robbed of those kinds of experiences. I wanted them to see, hey, when you take a portion of what you've worked hard to create and you purposely, intentionally give to help others as you're led, not just randomly and just giving money away, but as you do it as you're led, as you get a witness in your heart, as your heart tells you, yes, this is where I'd like to be helpful, there's a reward that's really undescribable. And to allow our children to experience that is an incredible gift and a privilege. And when your children are older and they're generous, they become much more productive in society and they make the world better. And they're the better for it. I mean, when we did that, we saw so many incredible, what I can only describe as financial miracles that showed up in our lives. And I'm not trying to create a law here. I'm not saying, hey, go and put this in and, you put $10,000 here and you're going to get 100,000. I'm not telling you that. The reward is the giving. The fact of it doing in somebody's life what we hoped it would be, that's the reward. Now, there are other things that come along back with it so that you can give again. But what I'm looking for is the satisfaction of knowing, hey, I'm making a difference in somebody's lives and I'm being entrusted, I believe, by God with the opportunity to do so. And that's a powerful privilege and an opportunity to help our children enjoy and share. So I'm really big on that. So you got three buckets and you got to allocate it. And look, it's hard. You know, I talk to my daughter about it all the time. She's in Brooklyn now, very expensive. And she's like, I don't see how I can do it. And I'm like, well, you won't do it if you don't see it. And, you know, people who start off with the idea that I'm going to spend what I have and whatever's left, I'm going to give and save, they tend to always be in a position where they're constantly in need and they only have enough for themselves. But people who make the conscious decision to say, I'm going to take what I have, I'm going to ensure that I invest and save so that I have seed to produce the bread I want to eat later. And I want to be a blessing to others so that I can be qualified and open to receive so that I can give again. And then whatever is left after that, I'm going to take care of all the things I want to take care of. Those people tend to do really well over time. Now, I'm not saying there aren't sacrifices and delayed gratifications is a real personal friend to you when you live like that. But I am saying that long term, those people tend to do really well. And the ones who choose to prioritize enjoyment today, they might appear to live better now and might be more rich, but later they find themselves in a world of hurt and need. So trying to help kids understand those three buckets, especially when they're young, we required our kids, here's every dollar you get, you got three buckets allocated accordingly. Obviously, you're going to put more into the personal spending category for yourself, but you want to have these other categories represented. And then as our kids got older and they're teenagers, we didn't have to insist upon it. We weren't in a position to do so. We can't tell you, hey, take that money and divide it. Hopefully we modeled it enough, showed you enough early that you're doing it. And you can see the benefit of it because when you do it, you're starting to see your investment account grow. When you do it, you've got this portfolio, you've got this investment account this account that's tied to giving. And now you're able to be a blessing to other people. And that's a powerful thing. And you want to repeat it. But as you get older, you know, you're out of school. I get it for all the young people out there, and young people, I mean, those in their like late 20s. You're in a metropolitan area and it's like, look, it's expensive. Just getting my hair done is $800, right? My apartment is X amount. I just don't have enough. And that statement is true no matter where you go, as long as you bring yourself with you, because it's about how you prioritize things. And maybe in this particular season in your life, you are going to you don't have as much in these other categories as you like, but you got to put an expiration date on that lifestyle. You really do. Like, okay, I get it. You're in a nice metropolitan area. You're having a good time. You're enjoying yourself. You're learning. You're doing all this. You're exploring. You're experiencing. That's cool. But you got an expiration date. Put that on there and it's time to go at some point because you are not building the future. You are simply reinvesting in the present. And so helping yourself to understand that as I stand alongside you is really important. And you might not be able to ultimately build an investment portfolio and be a giver living where you're living. You might have to change where you live. You might have to make some serious adjustments. You might need another roommate. You got to move to a different part of town. You want to always be safe, but you got to make adjustments. I feel like I'm talking to my daughter. Oh man, if she's watching this, I know I'll probably get a call. But look, you got to make choices because time is moving and time will be your friend, but then it will be an enemy later. So allocate among those three buckets. And if you can get your kids doing that consistently early, later on, it's not that they won't maybe deviate it from it, but they know that they're deviating, right? And there should be something in their mindset that says, man, I can't continue to do this. I don't have any savings. I don't have emergency fund. I don't have any of that. Come on. Like that's a recipe for ultimate financial failure. You have to prioritize money in these other two categories. You got to put it in the savings and the investing part. You've got to do something with giving. I just believe it opens up what I call the windows of heaven in your life. But you got to allocate to these other categories because if you don't, you'll be living for self. You will be living for self. You know, if you go to Israel or you go to the Middle East, you ever been to the Dead Sea? Interesting story. So the Dead Sea is this massive body of water, but it's interesting because there are no fish in it. So when you go to any big body of water, you're like, wow, there must be a lot of fish in there. There are no fish. Like, how can a massive body of water have no fish in it? Well, it's because it's so salty that no fish can live in it. And in some ways, that's the way our finances are. You got money, you got this pool of money, but you have no wealth. Why? You have no wealth like the Dead Sea has no fish because it's too salty. That is, you are spending way too much of it on yourself. And it's making the ground in which you have the investments that you have, the money that you have, it's not allowing wealth to grow. Wealth can't grow there any more than the fish can grow in the Dead Sea because it's not an environment conducive for growth. It kills fish. Your spending habits kill your ability to build wealth. And I don't care how long you sit in front of the Dead Sea and with your fishing pole and look for fish, pray for fish, you aren't catching anything. And I don't care how long you stay in that apartment. I don't care how long you stay in that position with the spending that you're doing. You're not going to have wealth created. You're going to have to adjust and go back to this principle. Some money goes for myself. Some money goes for helping others. And some money goes to investing and saving, which allows me to ultimately create wealth. That's the use of money. That's what wealth is for. That's the purpose of it. And anything outside of that is abuse. All right, so we talked about that. I want to get on the preacher's pulpit on that too much longer, but hopefully that's helpful. Do that early with your kids. Reinforce it, encourage them, remind them, because that's the solution and it's also the problem, depending on how you approach it. Okay, so what's the next one? The next one is, now that we know what wealth is, now that we know how to create it, now that we know how to use it, the next thing is, how do you grow it? Well, I alluded to that a little bit earlier. I said that the one bucket that you put money to is called investing and saving. And I equated it to being like a seed. A farmer goes out and plants a seed, and one seed produces a massive crop, and it takes time. And so that's the way wealth is created. You can't create wealth by spending. You only create wealth by investing. And if you have time, as young people do, you don't need a lot of money. You can get there at $25 a month when you're first starting off, and then you get to $100 a month, and maybe you can get to $150 a month. If you have a lot of time, you don't need a lot of money to get and create wealth. But if you don't have a lot of time, you better already have a lot of money, because it's very, very difficult to build wealth. So depending on the age of your children, they have a lot of time. But as I said, time can be a friend or a foe. The question is, what are you doing with your time? So it is, when you're young, we're required to put a certain amount in this category called investing and spending. And if I make it a habit, if I create a muscle memory on it, over time, I can generate significant wealth. I can produce tens of thousands of dollars. And there are programs out there that are giving money away. You know, the government right now will give $1,000 to every single parent, every child that was born in 2026. They'll get $1,000. And I think that's all the way through 2028. They'll take that 1,000 and put it in an investment account. If you marry that money, that investment that the government's going to give you, with $100 and $150 a month, your child can create significant wealth by the time they're 30. And if you understand the principles that we've taught earlier, there's no reason why they shouldn't have $50,000 by the time they are 30 years of age. Now you got money for a down payment and a house. Now you can start your business. Like, this money is available. But if you don't understand how money is grown and produced, you're going to use it wrong, and that's going to be abusive to you. So how is money grown? Helping our kids understand that money is grown by investing. And over time, it produces a massive harvest for you. And you can do that with kids any number of ways. You can take a seed and you can plant it, and you can say, hey, let's see what happens. And you come back in the next season, whatever that germination cycle is, you can see, look what's grown. And that's what money does. Money is grown. And somebody has to plant it in order for it to grow. So trying to help our children understand that, the way I try to do it is get them set up so that they're ready for contributing to what you start. So if they understand the principles, then go and get an investment account open for them. Open up an account for them and have them put their money in it consistently. Grandma gave you some money. Grandma gave you $100, $25. We're going to put into this investment account. And that's just clockwork all the time. You're working that summer job. You're going to take 10% of that and you're going to put that here. When you start your first job, you're going to automatically put a certain amount there. You get the point. Every time you do it. And when you do that, that's the way wealth is grown. You will look and you'll see money start to grow. Now, it will take time. And the market is really crazy, the investment market, because the market will say, you got to show me that you're serious about me before I commit to you. It's like the market is like, I'm not marrying you. You are not having any part of this until you demonstrate that you know how to handle me. That's what the market says. Mrs. Market. For the guys, I'm gonna call it Mrs. Market, Mr. Market, call it whatever you want. The point is, it's gonna be like, you gotta show me something for years before I commit to you and give you what I have. And if you do that over 10, 15 years, it doesn't matter what you do after that. The market says, okay, you've proven it. I'm gonna handle the rest of the way. And I've shown this over countless occasions. What happens when you invest $200 a month? It's gonna take you 2 decades almost before you start seeing really any big amount of money. And you're like, most of this money after 10 years, 20 years of doing this is my contribution. But then from that next 5 years, next 7 years, the market, your portfolio value explodes. Why? Not because you've been giving more money, but because the market expands it. The market compounds it. But why is it that the market compounding effect doesn't happen until you've demonstrated such a long period of time of commitment? That's the way it works. It will not work for you. You can invest $200 a month and you can't come to it 3 years and later and be like, hey, why am I not wealthy? The market's like, you got to do this for another 10 years. And when you do this, I'm going to do what you did in half the time. That's the way wealth works. The growth is not linear. The growth is not it's just, the growth is it's parabolic. It goes like this. Boom. It's crazy. And you have to show your kids that. Show them what happens. If you do this, this is how much you're going to make. If you do this, this is how much it's going to make. And if they see that, they're going to be much more inclined to be an investor of it. So that's the way money is actually grown. And the last one is, how do you protect it? Well, one of the biggest ways to protect wealth is to not get yourself in debt. And so we spend a lot of time with young people, and particularly right before, when they're in high school, before they go to college and start getting offers on all kinds of credit cards. We say think about the 3 buckets. There's money that I'm spending for myself, money that I'm giving, and money that I'm using to grow and create wealth. So in all 3 of those buckets, where do you think borrowing money would be most effective? Okay, in the spending category, yes, we have to buy a house, we have to buy a car, we usually have to borrow to do that. But for the most of the spending, the food you eat, the clothes you wear, the vacations you take, the things you enjoy, the television you watch, all the appliances that you buy, all the things that you would spend money on, that's not a place to use debt to get. You're not going to borrow money to go give to somebody. So the only place that real borrowing has really empowerment is in the investing side. And I know that we have deemed debt to be horrible. Debt isn't horrible. Debt's got to have been given a bad name. Debt that doesn't pay you more than what you pay to use it, that's bad debt. But any debt you incur that generates a return greater than the cost of the debt you use to take it on, well, that's good debt. So I can go and I can invest in a real estate piece of property, right? And now all of a sudden I'm expanding and compounding my return potential because I'm using leverage positively to help build wealth through buying a piece of property. So one of the things we say is that you can have your kids always answer this question. Is using that credit card or debt, is that making you money? Number one. And number two, if it is making you money, is it making you more than what it costs you to borrow? Because if it doesn't answer those 2 correctly, it's not a good use of debt and you don't want to do it. And you can play games at your home with this. Put a stack of cards, you can just have good debt, bad debt game. And you pass it around. You can put all kinds of things on this card. Like you want to get married. Should you take on debt? Is that good debt or bad debt? Use the definition that I gave. You want to go on vacation, good debt or bad debt. You want to you're going to borrow to buy books for college, good debt or bad debt. Oh, that's a good one. You want to buy a house, good debt or bad debt. You need a car, good debt or bad debt. Like you can take this all. And what it does is it helps your children understand, okay, am I using debt wisely? Is it making me money? Number 2, and is the money that it's making me more than the cost of what I have to pay in order to use it? And if you take that simple definition, that helps out a lot. I'm not saying your kids won't have to need it. Look, things in life happen. your tire blew out and maybe you didn't take and have enough money in your investment account to have an emergency fund, which should be a part of it. So you had to use that credit card. You don't want to hurt yourself, and you don't want to condemn yourself for poor choices all the time, right? That's not a way to live life. But if you've made mistakes, get back up. Because success is not the absence of failure. Success is using failure to learn and do better the next time. So those are the different ways that I've tried to communicate and share, sometimes good and positively, other times maybe not as well as I would have liked with my kids. And I would encourage you to do the same with your own. Help your kids before they leave the house understand the 5 essential lessons of wealth and money. And when they're older, they'll not only thank you, but you'll see the rewards of your efforts by the way they live life and how they are contributing to society. I hope that was helpful. I'd love to see your comments on things that you're doing to help your kids build wealth. But in the meantime, be encouraged. Your kids are on a great path and have a great road ahead of them. They just need that support and guidance. Giving them these lessons or giving them these lessons will help ensure that they have the greatest opportunity to be successful and to build real wealth.